This episode is made possible by our sponsor, OmegaBrite Wellness. I've taken their omega-3 supplements for many years, and so has my wife, and that's why I invited them to sponsor my podcast. I'm proud to have them. You can find all of their products online at OmegaBriteWellness.com, and Bright is intentionally misspelled B-R-I-T-E, OmegaBriteWellness.com. This episode is also sponsored by Landmark College in beautiful Putney, Vermont. Learn more about the college of choice for students who learn differently at their virtual open house on March 19th. Register at landmark.edu/visit. Landmark.edu/visit. Or by clicking the link in the show notes. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. If you've ever suspected you have ADHD, but were never diagnosed, today's conversation will be of interest to you. My guest is a woman, a very accomplished woman, by the name of Angel Gambino. She's a serial entrepreneur and a highly successful executive, innovator, and human being. She suspects that she has ADHD, but has never been formally diagnosed. Now, I can't do a formal diagnosis over the telephone on a podcast, but I can give you a sort of an idea of what the process looks like to get diagnosed, and I can give you a pretty good idea if I think she has it, but don't take this as a formal diagnosis. This is not how we do business, and I don't want people to think that, oh, this is just a condition that you need to call into a radio show and the host can tell you if you have it or not. So please be very clear on that. The purpose of this is to illustrate the kinds of questions an evaluator would ask and the kind of process that goes into leading to a diagnosis. And obviously I can't do testing over the podcast. So this will not be a formal diagnostic interview, but it will be similar to that. And in addition to Angel, we also have her friend Freda, and I asked her to bring along someone else who knows her well because people with ADHD are not good self-observers. So in evaluating adults, you always want to have another person, friend, spouse, mate, even parent, depending upon the age, but someone who knows you well, who can corroborate or correct what you say. It's not that I have ADHD myself, it's not that we lie, we just don't know what happened or what we said or how we come across. And so you always want to do the interview process, the diagnostic process with at least two people present so you can get corroboration or correction of the story. Well, just a little bit about Angel. You know, she is a remarkable woman, and Angel, why don't, rather than me just asking questions, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us about your history, you know, beginning in maybe in childhood, and just compact it and tell us your story because it's not an ordinary story.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I was born in the 70s, and I was born to a teenage mom. She was still in high school, and her and my dad got married after that. And, I don't know. I guess I could tell you that I was just one of those people who had a lot of energy, and I played soccer, and, I did really well at school, but I was very, I guess, ambitious. And then, later on, I really strived to get a soccer scholarship, even though they were pretty rare at that stage. But that was, my dream in school. And I also worked a lot in school. So I was working a full-time job, and I was getting paid, pretty well at that stage because I was on commission at Hudson's, which used to be a retail, high-end retail store in Detroit. And so I was doing a lot of things all the time. And then I got that dream soccer scholarship and went away to a college called Missouri Valley College. And it was a really tiny college in Missouri. And I definitely felt like a fish out of water, but was loving playing soccer and going to school. And so while I was there, I double majored, and I think I'm 2 credits shy of a triple major in history, poli-sci, and what would have been economics. And so my dream, and I should say, while I was there, I was, president of my sorority. I was president of the kind of students council. I can't remember what they called it. And, I had lots of other roles in terms of the entrepreneurship club, et cetera. And I started a business, a triple bottom line business in college, where I was providing jobs to a kind of local institution of mentally disabled folks. It was a recycling business. And then while I was in college, my dream was to go to law school and to get a scholarship. And that was, primarily because, my family couldn't pay for it and I couldn't pay for it. So I worked my butt off to try to get, the best grades, et cetera. I graduated top in my class. We ended up losing the national title for soccer, but we did, make it to second place. And, I was, very active in college in terms of all the different clubs, like I was when I was, in high school and younger.
You made it to second place nationally, Angel?
Yeah.
Was this D1 or D2?
This was NAIA, and so it's NAIA Division I, but at that stage, NCAA did not give out a lot of scholarships. There was, I think, North Carolina did. But, but a lot of the big D1 schools did not have programs yet. Like University of Michigan didn't have a women's soccer team or anything like that. So it was very
So what year
days.
was this? What year was this?
I graduated college. So that was 94. Yeah, 94.
Uh-huh. Wow. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So we made it into Missouri State Hall of Fame. And it was a lot of fun. But then I went on, I kind of pursued that dream of law school and I wanted to pursue environmental law. I wanted to become a public interest environmental law attorney. And at that stage, University of Oregon had the #1 program. And so I applied there. And luckily I got in. And so I moved to Oregon. And, I arrived in Oregon on the day that our first classes started. And so I was on the front handlebars of this girl's bike. And that's how I got to class the first day. I didn't have any books, nothing. I just kind of showed up. But it was a lot of fun. And then, I did really well in law school. I got permission from the bar to start practicing while I was in law school, which is pretty rare. So I was able to practice law under a more senior lawyer while I was in law school. And I started up a couple of nonprofits. One, the Grade 8 Project to protect primates. I started up an animal law group to work on the protection of animals. I ran the Public Interest Environmental Law Conference, which is the largest environmental law conference in the world. And started they didn't have any classes that dealt with that topic at all. So you kind of had to learn in different classes like property and all sorts of different criminal law. And so I created an animal law class while I was there, and I recruited the professors. And now that's a program that exists throughout Oregon and at many other law schools now. So I did. Wow. Yeah, I did a lot. And then I ended up being a bartender at Max's, which is this super cool bar in Eugene, Oregon. And so I was spending a lot of time serving people beer.
Hey, this is Sarah Gerton, producer of Distraction. Coming up at the end of this episode, Dr. Carol Locke, the founder of OmegaBrite Wellness, one of our sponsors, returns to the podcast to share more information about COVID and the vaccine. Dr. Locke has been involved in conversations with the Harvard Medical School, the CDC, and the FDA regarding vaccine development. This week, she's talking about herd immunity, what it is, and how we'll get there. Dr. Locke's company, OmegaBrite Wellness, creators of the #1 omega-3 supplement, is offering a special discount for Distraction listeners. You'll save 20% off your first order when you use the promo code DISTRACTION during checkout at their website, OmegaBriteWellness.com. All right, have you listened to this week's Q&A episode yet? Ned responds to a listener who was thrilled to finally be diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 43, but feels shame and guilt about her diagnosis when talking to her friends and family about it. Every Monday, Dr. Hallowell answers a question from one of our listeners. If you have a question, write an email or record a voice memo and send it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. Our Q&A episodes wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, Foreman School in Litchfield, Connecticut. Foreman is a co-ed college prep school dedicated to empowering bright students who learn differently in grades 9 through postgraduate. Learn more at formanschool.org.
And what happened to soccer along the way?
Yeah, so while I was there, I was playing, and I ended up, meeting up with a bunch of other players who I had come across, during my college days. And, I subsequently ended up at a later stage being scouted for the English Premier League. So I ended up playing for Queen's Park Rangers. And then in 2012, I ended up being the team liaison officer for the U.S. women's national soccer team at London 2012, where we got gold. So I was working on the management side at that stage. So that kind of path, went off that way. And from kind of college and law school, then I got my, through the networks that I was building while practicing and running those conferences, I got my dream job out of law school, and that was working with the Fund for Animals at the Humane Society of the United States. So it was like a job well above my kind of experience level, or, it's definitely not a job you get straight out of law school, but it was my dream job, and I had had enough experience by that stage. And so I moved to DC and started doing that until I realized, that the day-to-day practice of law was not something that I loved. I loved knowing that I was working to, I thought, make the world a better place. But when you're in the heart of DC, you get to see the real machinations of how things work. Yes. And I just thought, like every day I was dealing with really, really ugly issues, just terrible stuff. And so I thought, I really care about these issues and I want to be able to donate to these causes, but I was making $27K gross a year. And, and that just barely covered anything at all, in terms of, I was living in this studio apartment, I could literally touch my, my kitchen from my bed and touch the bathroom at the same time. So with my hands, so it was a small studio full of cockroaches. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? So
then you started a business?
Yeah, I decided that I would go into business. I played volleyball with a bunch of rocket scientists from NASA, because DC is one of those strange places where those kinds of things happen. So we would play volleyball every week. And, I told them, look, like this is not my life's calling. And I'm really excited about the internet, because when I was in law school and I was running, the Public Interest Environmental Law Conference, we did the first webcast and we did the first, electronic registration. So at that stage, if you can imagine, you had these big conferences, but you didn't have a way to just sign up online, right? And you didn't have a way to listen to those events or watch those events online, because that was 1996 that we were doing that. And so we did that for the first time. We webcast for the first time. NPR would broadcast the conference, and so we were able to broadcast it over the internet for the first time. We were able to get people to pay for the conference online for the first time, and we had to build all that because there weren't off-the-shelf, software solutions. So I decided I was really inspired by the internet as a medium of communication, as a medium of change. And so because I got excited about that, I thought, this day-to-day practice of law where I'm dealing with all these ugly issues and scenarios, and, I really loved creating, and I feel like what I was doing was about shutting things down. And so, so when I was playing volleyball with these rocket scientists, we would have like a pint of beer, after the matches, and, we would get to talking, and they said, well, you should talk to our chief financial advisor, for NASA. She's going over to, to work on some businesses in New York. And so I said, okay, so I thought of it as an informational interview. And then I went to New York, met with her, and, they were talking about how they had a bunch of electronic payment systems clients, and they had a bunch of direct marketing clients. And I said, okay, so you're going to build out a whole new e-commerce practice. And they said, oh, well, we hadn't thought about that. So what, was an informational interview ended up becoming this interesting, business strategy discussion. And then I started, interviewing for a job that I didn't know I was interviewing for. And then they told me I didn't get the job that I didn't even know I was interviewing for. And so I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even know this was a job. And so then when I got the rejection, I did I wrote a handwritten letter to the COO and to the CEO and told them why I thought that they made a really bad decision in not hiring me for this job that I didn't know I was trying for. But that rejection somehow inspired me to fight for it, which is ridiculous. But and then they said that they had never had anyone, tell them, no to their rejection.
Right.
So they ended up hiring me, and they ended up hiring me for many multiples over, what I was making, as a lawyer. And so, I got to go out there and set up the business, but they set it up in such a way that I was basically an entrepreneur. So they basically kind of gave me seed funding, and then everything else was up to me based on, the business that I built.
Angel, I'm going to have to interrupt you because I can tell that you're not. Yeah.
I'm only halfway through, so you should.
That's what I was going to say. We don't have time to hear the whole story, but I've certainly heard enough to know that you're absolutely brilliant, and I don't
know about that, but
well, I know about that. It's all completely compatible with ADHD in terms of the positives. You're brilliant. You're an entrepreneur. You're imaginative. You're daring. You go for it. You're hardworking, you're persistent, you've got a great sense of humor. How about the pain? Have you had any? Do you have any problems with your mind wandering, with getting disorganized, with having self-doubts and dark periods? Is there any of that or not? I want to talk to you for a moment about Landmark College. Landmark College in beautiful, beautiful Putney, Vermont. If you have never been to Putney, Vermont, go there. And when you're there, if you have any interest in students who learn differently, go take a look at Landmark College. They are the masters of helping kids with, I should say young adults, with ADHD and other learning differences. People like me, I have ADHD and I have dyslexia, and I'm, different. But Landmark looks at someone like me and says, different in a good way, and let us help you learn how to present your good side and compensate for your not-so-good side by working with our amazing teachers here at this beautiful campus in beautiful Putney, Vermont. Landmark College really is the best of its kind, and if you are a student or you have someone in your life who wants to get on with education, Landmark College is the place to go if you happen to have ADHD or dyslexia or other learning difference. Landmark is having a virtual open house on March 19th. March 19th. Circle the date. There's a panel for parents only to get an idea of what students will experience if they go there. And they're having a student panel, too, where current students talk about what it's like to live and learn at Landmark. That's a great way to really get a feel for a place. To register for the virtual open house, virtual meaning you don't have to go to Putney, Vermont. It's too bad, though. It's a beautiful town. To register for the virtual open house on March 19th, go to landmark.edu/visit or click the link in our show notes. Okay, let's get back to today's topic.
Yeah, so this is part of the reason why I shouldn't say I've always wondered. I've only recently wondered whether, I have ADHD or not. And a lot of that comes through conversations and learning about my son's autism and more about ADHD and things. So, yes, I would say, because I have so many interests, and some people say like polymath or, other phrases that they use for it. And because I have so much energy, I definitely have to I've created a lot of systems to get a lot of stuff done. So I'm always juggling, as an entrepreneur, you're always juggling a lot of things at the same time. So, I create lots of lists. I make sure that I have people around me, like in my team, who are way more systems or process oriented than I am. And so I don't know if that's, me just knowing where my strengths and my weaknesses are. And so building systems and infrastructure and teams around me to make sure that we're getting the best out of me and the best out of them, or, and to what extent this leads into, I don't know, ADHD or something like that. But, dark periods.
Well, it definitely does. I mean, the way you coped is you found people who could do what you're not good at, which is great. You just instinctively and naturally delegated and put together organizations where your creative innovation talent your strength could prevail, and the stuff you weren't so good at, you found someone to help you with.
Yeah, for sure. And, I posted a video on Instagram the other day, and it was to promote this, product called Can. And it's a video of me opening up my refrigerator. And it's so funny because, one of my friends from high school saw it, and he sent me these emojis, like with the shocked face, like the open gaping mouth. And right. I said, oh, is that, and I was like, it's a cannabis product. So I said, oh, is that because it's a cannabis product or because of how type A I am about how I organize my refrigerator? And he said, definitely the type A. And I said, okay, but it's because I'm not naturally organized that I have very structured ways around how I can keep certain aspects of my life organized so I don't have to think about it, so I don't have to be so it doesn't have to occupy space in my brain. So I come up with these ways of doing things. Like the fridge is, it is pretty insanely organized, but if it's not, then it's something I have to think about. And so I don't want to deal with that.
Let me just bring in Freda for a minute. Freda, what are your thoughts about what Angel has said so far?
I think what Angel has shared is pretty spot on in terms of there are a wide array of interests that she has. There's also, ways in her mind, like she processes a certain way and tries to communicate the process. But in also being a friend, but also in working with her, sometimes I wonder if conveying the messaging might be a little bit, it may be received differently, if that may make sense. And so, so again, there can be this mismatch of, okay, what did you need? Or what did you say? So she definitely is, and I won't say just jumping. She kind of gets hyper focused on the thing, but she can be focused on numerous things at the same time and trying to engage several people across, these different parts of those projects.
Yeah, I think that's right. I find a lot of times when I'm talking with team members, I'm thinking 10 steps ahead. And so, and I'm assuming that they're kind of coming, that they can see it as clearly as I can. And a lot of times that's not the case. So, so Freda's been great with me because she knows how my mind works. And so, but a lot of times I have to go, okay, I gotta take it a lot more slowly with people. Mm-hmm. And I, when I'm communicating, like where we're trying to get to or what we're trying to do or why we're trying to do it, mm-hmm. and then really step people through it. And sometimes it's hard for me to have that patience to really go through it in a very slow and methodical way and make sure that it really lands well for other people, because I'm mm-hmm. already like miles down the road,
One of my metaphors for ADHD is that you have a Ferrari engine for a brain. You've got an incredibly powerful, fast brain, but you have bicycle brakes. So it's hard for you to slow down, and stop and listen, that sort of thing. So, but you certainly sound, and this is how the diagnosis is made. It's based on the history. And, I mean, you could have continued your history much longer, but your history is highly suggestive. So I would urge you to get my new book, ADHD 2.0. And if you see yourself in there, you've done great. You're spectacularly successful, but that doesn't mean you couldn't benefit from understanding this condition and getting treatment for it, because you could find yourself getting even more done with less effort. So you've overcome amazing obstacles and you've excelled, and you're in love with life. And you didn't add that you have a son, and you're just like so many of us with ADHD. You're a life enthusiast. You're interested in just about anything that comes along. So. Yes. My hunch is you do have it in a wonderful way, and I don't see it as a disorder at all. The term ADHD is a terrible term. I see it as a trait, and if you manage it right, it becomes a superpower, and you've been doing that. But it could be even better, and so I'd suggest you check out the book, and if it makes sense, give me a call and I'll tell you what to do.
Yeah, I would love to check it out, because what I've heard from other people that I know that have been diagnosed is that they feel as though, well, first of all, I've definitely gone through dark periods, but generally I'm just a super positive person, and I can mm-hmm. center pretty easily through breath work and meditation and mm-hmm. walking in nature. But they've had what I perceive to be darker periods than I have. And I would also say that they've expressed frustration that they feel as though they can't get a lot of stuff done because it kind of gets in the way. And I feel like I'm able to juggle a lot pretty well. Like,
yes.
So that's where I felt like, well, maybe not.
Well, yeah, maybe not indeed. The main thing is, what might make life better, easier for you, and whatever diagnostic term we want to use. I mean, I just finished being part of a video, and at the end of it, one of the people in the documentary said, the name of the condition should just be the name of the person who has it. So your diagnosis is Angel, and
right.
We don't have to attribute all kinds of other things to it. And you're a mover and a shaker and a life lover, and like your son's name, Bronco. You're a Bronco. You're run wild, run free, and run with the wind. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah. What I see in him, I also see in myself, and that, when it's something that we really love, we just get shit done, and it happens, and we create amazing stuff. So
yes.
Yeah.
And isn't that great? I mean, you're in love with life and the opportunities that being alive gives you.
Yes. Yeah.
And some of those other things that they say that's a part of the diagnosis in terms of following directions, definitely not a person who follows directions. And
No.
Of appearing timely to appointments. Like, no, you're not really.
Not so much, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's definitely like when, sometimes I do get really, really frustrated with myself, because even when I put all these different systems in place, like I had a call scheduled this week and this past week, and I was in the car. My son was in therapy, and I was, getting some email done. And I kept telling myself, okay, you've got 6 minutes to this call. And then I get back into another email. Okay, you've got like 3 minutes to this call. Yep. Okay, good. I'm on track. And I get back into the email, and then I got a call from someone else. And then I totally forgot that I had this other call that I was doing this countdown for. And so I was frustrated.
I think you have it, Angel. I'm not formally diagnosing you, but my strong intuition is that yes, indeed, you have it. And as I like to call it, you have the gift. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah, check it out. And if you see yourself in it, give me a call, and I'll give you some advice on what to do next.
Yeah, I will definitely check it out. I appreciate it.
All right.
And I think I'll have to probably share it with all of my entrepreneur friends.
Most entrepreneurs have this. Believe me, it's the entrepreneur's condition. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Freda, for joining us today. It's been a real treat to interview you. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. What a dynamo Angel is, like so many people who have the gift, or and believe me, I'm not diagnosing her, but I'm saying that my index of suspicion is pretty high. Remember to reach out to us with your questions. You can send us a message on social media or email connect@distractionpodcast.com. Please keep listening after this episode for a special segment from Dr. Carol Locke of OmegaBrite Wellness. She is a genius, I'll tell you. She'll be following up on her segment from last week regarding the COVID vaccine. That's coming up right after this episode. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. Our producer is the wonderfully talented and always positive Sarah Gurton. And our audio engineer and editor is the equally talented and positive Scott Person. I'm Dr. Ned Hallowell. I've enjoyed being with you today. I hope you'll join me next time, and thanks for your attention today. Good luck.
So hello, this is Dr. Carol Locke. A big question that people have about COVID and this pandemic is, when will it end, and when will we be able to return to normal life? And that's something we don't know yet. Dr. Fauci has talked about the need to get herd immunity. And so what is herd immunity, and how do we establish it for different infections? And herd immunity depends on how infective the agent is and how much of the population needs to have immunity to protect the rest of the population or herd. So looking at how infective the COVID virus is, and this can change or increase with the variants. Right now, Dr. Fauci reports that we need 70 to 85% of the population to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity, either in the U.S. and globally. We need 70 to 85% of the population to be vaccinated. And why do they need to be vaccinated? And one of the important reasons is, one, to reduce infection and allow us to return to normal life, and two, to reduce the possibility of variants occurring. Variants occur in infected individuals. So while you're infected, the virus can mutate and change to try to escape and become more infective and survive. The more people that have infections, the more chance there is for variants. And we know that if you have a chronic infection, it has been documented in a recent case at Harvard of a patient having a chronic infection and developing different variants of the COVID vaccine in his body. So it's important that we reduce the number of people with infections to reduce the variants, and that helps us with the vaccine effectiveness. So our goal is to vaccinate 70 to 85% of the population, and as studies come in, we'll know more about exactly what percentage needs to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. The goal in the U.S. is to vaccinate, hopefully, most of the population in the U.S. by either the summer or the fall. And this makes it very important for people to talk to a trusted person in their community about their concerns about getting vaccinated if they're worried or they don't want to. Thank you for listening, and this is Dr. Carol Locke.
The episode you just heard was made possible by my good friends at OmegaBrite Wellness. I take their supplements every day, and that's why I invited them to sponsor my podcast. Shop online at OmegaBrite, and that's BRITE wellness.com.